Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the rare physique update from Andrew Jack. Now, I think this is pretty significant considering the fact that if you look back at Andrew's Olympia prep, he did not post one single physique update. Pretty much the entirety of that prep. Everything he posted was pretty much completely covered up in a hoodie training in the gym, which he acknowledges here in this post in the caption where he says, when the hoodie comes off, chest and tricep work, yes sir, Psycho's camp, and he tags Psycho Fitness, who he's now working with, which is Chris Psycho Lewis, the same guy that trained Sean Roden. And we also know that he switched his guru from George Farah to Chris Aceto. So we're right around 5.5 weeks out here. My initial observation of this physique update is this guy looks round and full as a house in these updates, especially in the first slide. His triceps and delts from that side angle look insane. It's almost hard to believe that this guy's physique is not photoshopped. If we hadn't seen him on stage in HD video, I wouldn't believe that this guy is really as round and full as he is, but he is. He's the real deal. Crazy roundness, crazy fullness. And he also shows off his back a little bit there. What's kind of hard to tell how he's looking because half of the back's covered in shadows and the other half is kind of overexposed from the sunlight. But look, Andrew Jack is a very unique specimen when it comes to open bodybuilding. Very aesthetic, very round, very full, very etched, deep, round abs. I would even go as far to say right now that Andrew Jack has the best abs in open bodybuilding right now. I mean, think about it. If you're talking about depth and detail and definition in the midsection, who has better abs than Andrew Jack right now in open bodybuilding? I really don't think anybody does. But I think the thing that people need to realize, and the thing that Andrew still needs to work on, and that I'm curious to see, whether or not this changes with his two new coaches, is conditioning. And I think a lot of people get abs confused with conditioning because a lot of people will say, well, how can you say he wasn't in shape at the Olympia? Did you see his abs? And that's probably more, newcomer fans that are saying that. But abs don't equal conditioning. I think he needs more detail and striations in the pecs. I think he holds water in the lower back, the glutes, and the hamstrings. And I think part of the reason for that is the reason that he gave. He was really sick at one point during his Olympia prep to the point where he said he almost didn't even compete in the show. So in this Arnold lineup, I really do consider Andrew a wild card to win because you've got this crazy lineup with such good names like Nick Walker, William Bonac, Big Ramy, Sean Carita, these guys that are really dominant bodybuilders, some of whom very consistent bodybuilders. Andrew Jack hasn't quite developed that consistency yet, so I feel like his name is left out of the conversation a little bit. But Andrew is a guy that I think if he comes in completely on could win this show. I think this little film of water and that little bit of blurriness to his physique, especially in the back shots, is this tiny little thing holding him back from being a champion. But if you want to see how he does at the Arnold Classic, make sure you buy the pre-sale discounted pay-per-view and use code NSP10 to get an additional 10% off. It's regularly $60. With a code, right now you can get it for $45. Highly recommend the pre-sale because it won't be that price the day of the show. You're going to buy it anyway, so go ahead and buy it early. Save yourself $15, code NSP10. Now, another guy that's in this conversation that I really would like to see a call out of him and Andrew because they have very similar physiques. They're both taller guys, bigger guys, heavier guys, aesthetic guys. Samson Dauda showing off a side profile of his leg in this latest physique update at about 5.5 weeks out from the Arnold Classic. Samson, I think, is a very similar case to Andrew Jack as well. He's a very complete guy. Very aesthetic, very pleasing physique to look at, and a ton of size. I think both him and Andrew Jack were in the 290s on stage at the Olympia. And really the main criticism for both of them is they need to come in tighter. I think Samson has a little bit less improvement to do in that tightness than Andrew. But Samson certainly is an interesting case. And I think another wild card to win this show, even with the additions of Nick Walker and Big Ramy, these really big names. And another thing that I found interesting about Samson, and typically I don't really care about this too much, who a bodybuilder is sponsored by or what their sponsorship entails, but he re-signed with Hostile Supplements, Hostile Nutrition. And I thought it was interesting. He reported this yesterday, and then Buys and Tries also posted, and they reported that he was actually the highest paid, now with this new contract, the highest paid Hostile Nutrition sponsored athlete ever. Now that to me is interesting because Nick Walker was previously sponsored by Hostile Nutrition. So typically when a supplement company is looking to sponsor somebody, there's two main criteria they're looking at, is contest resume and following. Now, Nick has 1.2 million followers, and Samson has 180-something thousand followers on Instagram. Nick has about 10 times the following. Nick has better Olympia placings, and an Arnold Classic title, a New York Pro title, and a top 3 at the Olympia this year. Samson doesn't have any of those. So what do they see in Samson that they didn't see in Nick to justify that difference in payment? That is the main thing to me. What's the value they're getting from Samson, or that they think they're getting from Samson? And I think the answer to that question is potential. And what I mean by that is Samson has a lot of room to improve, more room to improve than Nick. But even with that being said, he's still a fantastic bodybuilder. He's doing really well. And a lot of people can see he's got all the tools in his arsenal to be a dominant bodybuilder once he brings that conditioning up to par with everything else. He's got the size, he's got the aesthetics, he's got the stage presence. He's very physically commanding on stage. He looked fine. He looked big and competitive next to Big Ramy, who in theory was the biggest guy on stage. Where Nick, on the other hand, I think is much more close to his peak. Nick is reaching his peak physique right now, I think, in the next couple of years, the next year or so. This physique that's winning these titles and placing top 3 at the Olympia, I don't know how much more room for improvement there really is for Nick beyond the point that he's at, given the frame that he's got. I'm sure he can improve a little bit year to year still, but I don't think there's these massive gaps for him to improve. He really is, I think, close to his peak perfect physique for him right now. Whereas you take a guy like Samson and look at this structure, this frame, the height, the stage presence, the size. Picture that with a massively improved conditioning, say Hadi Chupin level conditioning. That's a pretty big gap of improvement, and that, I think, would be an extremely dominant bodybuilder. And I think it's that potential that they see in him over Nick. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, because I thought it was fascinating that they reported that specifically to make that point, because that would mean that they saw more value in Samson than they saw in Nick to pay him more. I mean, that's literally at face value what that means. And where do you guys think that value is coming from, if not the potential? Now, we also did get a physique update from Akim Williams, a side tricep here at about 6 weeks out, he says in the caption, but I believe it was posted at 5.5. And it is important to realize that Akim, even though he was essentially last place at the Olympia, he did beat Kamal when they went head-to-head, and Kamal tried to do open. I believe it was at the Puerto Rico Pro this past year. And Kamal just placed 3rd in the 212 Olympia. So does that speak to Akim's ability or his chances here at being in the conversation for a first call-out? Because if we're talking about Sean Clarita as being a favorite to win, and then just one placing that separated Kamal and Sean at the 212 Olympia, but recently Akim has beaten Kamal, who is known for his conditioning, Akim obviously known for his size, could you somehow rationalize an argument for Akim being in the top conversation if he comes in lean enough? And again, I think you could, but I think that question mark is such a big one, because it's just it's always such an if, right? With Akim, you never know what you're going to get. The conditioning with him is so inconsistent, but the physique is just so dominant. He has a really good physique. He brought that conditioning a couple years ago. He was in the conversation briefly. I have not seen him bring it since. But let me know what you guys think about Akim's odds in the comments down below. Now, the final story that I have for you guys today, and this is turning out to really just be basically another Arnold Classic preview video, because we got physique updates from so many of the top guys. But the final story, a physique update from Nick Walker, where again, I think he looks very impressive. And again, I think this really accurately demonstrates the completeness that Nick already has. And the point that I was trying to make earlier, he's limited by his frame. He can only put so much size on that frame. And even in this static photo, you can see how maxed out he is. He's got so much muscle on his frame. And that's the argument that I would make from a standpoint of potential. I would say Nick is closer to realizing his potential than Samson, would be a better way of putting it. And this is why Nick is a bodybuilder's bodybuilder, because he's a freak. As young as he is, and as limited as he is by his structure and by his frame, he's really got about as much muscle as you can put on a frame as anybody could. This guy is dense and hypermuscular everywhere. And if you were to say he needs to put on 5 to 10 pounds of muscle, where would it even go? And Nick is the guy that these guys need to get through at the Arnold Classic. And I honestly think that the version that we saw of Nick at the Olympia this year was the best we've ever seen of him. And that is, if he replicates that or does better than that at the Arnold Classic, which I think is a possibility because I think he looks tighter in his prep this year than he did for the Arnold or for the Olympia last year, there's a very good reason why Nick is the on-paper favorite to win this show. There's a very good reason why there's so much hype behind Nick Walker. He's the real deal. He brings the size, he brings the conditioning, he brings the consistency. And even though he might not have the prettiest physique, he brings the stage presence. He controls his physique well. He presents his physique well. He is a very complete bodybuilder, and he is a very tough bodybuilder for anybody in this lineup to get past. But can it be done? I think there is a possibility. But right now, I think Nick Walker is by far the favorite to win this thing. But find out for yourselves in just 5 weeks. And don't pay the full price. Don't pay $60 to watch this live stream. Buy it now. Go to the link in the description box below to the FanMio page. Buy the Arnold pay-per-view pre-sale. Right now, it's $49.99 instead of $59.99. And you can use code NSP10 for an additional 10% off. You'll get it for $45, and this deal will not be active the weekend of. So if you know you're going to watch it, you're going to buy it anyway, save the money now, and just, you don't have to worry about it. You'll have it waiting and ready to go the weekend of the Arnold. And if you buy it with my code, it helps me out a lot, because then the Arnold knows that their advertising is working, and they should sponsor YouTube channels like mine and all your other favorite YouTubers, that this marketing approach works. So make sure you use that code NSP10 to let them know you saw the deal on the YouTube channel and it's working. Thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.
4, 3, 2. It's showtime.
All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.